Well, here we are back on the AM show. And, of course, we're talking our first big story. It has to do with illegal mining, Galamsey. And all the talk about it on the back of Professor Frimpong Boateng's piece that he has put out. That report didn't see the light of day until 2 years after. This morning, we explore that issue, which we did yesterday, but from different angles with two different personalities. I'm talking about former Lands and Natural Resources Minister Inusa Fusaini. He joins the conversation. We also have Elizabeth Ava joining the conversation as well. Lady, gentlemen, a very good morning to you.
Good morning, Benjamin. How are you?
I am very well. Do we have Elizabeth on board?
Yes, I'm here. Good morning. It's very early here, so excuse my drowsiness.
Oh, you are wholly excused. We totally understand. Elizabeth Va, of course, is Executive Director, Environmental Advocacy Group. I'll start with, for you, when you saw the Professor Frimpong Boateng report, what went through your mind? And of course, there have been rebuttals, there have been responses from the likes of Kojo Kroma, from the likes of Gabi Asare Otrodako. Lord Kome has spoken, among others. As the show goes on, we'll play some of those inserts. But what for you has been or was your initial reaction when you saw this 30-plus page report and considering the reactions? Let's start from what your initial thoughts were. I'll start with you, Elizabeth.
Well, thank you so much. Good morning to your audience. I think I've stopped being surprised by anything that comes out of Ghana nowadays, especially on the illegal mining front. But this is like someone coming from the middle of it all and telling Ghanaians that no, your issues haven't been out of a vacuum. Your issues are there because there is no willingness from the top to deal with anything. Because for this report to have been there for 2 solid years, and the president had this letter and he still went around telling people all sorts of things, always talking about lack of evidence. I mean, what else did he need? So no, I wasn't surprised. Nothing surprises me anymore. And then the rebuttals that have been coming out, it's just laughable. Sometimes they should just keep quiet because they've shown that they don't care about Ghanaians. They don't care. So even going through the trouble of trying to rebut, and I see them writing there, it's all hearsay. Wow. Hearsay from the man in the middle of it all. I mean, no, I am not surprised, but it's just like when you listen to it all, it just sad, the state that we are in as Ghanaians. Nothing surprises me, and my biggest worry right now is that this dies with the news cycle because, I mean, what is there? Who is going to do what? That's my biggest worry right now. But nothing surprises me from President Akufo-Addo and his government anymore when it comes to illegal mining.
I find that surprising because this president, only a few years ago, I think sometime in 2017, thereabouts, said he was putting his very presidency on the line in the fight against Galamsey. In fact, one of those whose names have been pointed to, Gabi Asare Otrodako, posted something back then to the effect that posterity would not forgive the Akufo-Addo government if they did not win the fight against Galamsey. Was all of that hypocrisy, do you think?
Yes, it was. Because the C&J mining, I've gone through the latest from the professor, and C&J mining, you are supposed to be the legal firm or advisor or whatever for this company, and look at the footprint that they've left behind. And you still have the nerve to come out and talk about not leaving a legacy. They didn't have any legacy to leave, and they haven't left anything for Ghanaians. You look at what these people have done. then I don't. You see, Ghanaians, I think we are to blame for believing in anything that President Akufo-Addo and his people said. It just keeps coming back to bite us. The man doesn't even believe in what is coming out from the mouth at the time he's saying it. He doesn't believe in it. So we believe him at our own risk at this point.
But to be
yes,
fair, to the president, how can we tell what he does believe when he's saying it and what he doesn't believe? Or is it a case of by their fruits you shall know them?
Exactly. I mean, insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. We have seen every now and again that this man says the right things. He speaks so beautifully about such beautiful things, but he doesn't do any of it, and he doesn't believe in it. So why would we? How can you put your presidency on the line, say you are going to fight this, and then right within your own circle, it's happening? What better way to show Ghanaians that you really mean your words? By starting within your circle, clean your own house. And then you come back, even after 2 years of sitting on a report like this, to say it is all hearsay. And you expect Ghanaians to still think that you put anything on the line. He's actually the one fronting it, because if he didn't pave the way, if he didn't tolerate everything that is going on around him, I'm sure Ghanaians wouldn't have the audacity and impunity to do the same thing. If the guard dog is itself destroying, what prevents the rest of the flock from joining in?
That is deep. Hold for me, Elizabeth. Let me bring in Inusaf Hussaini, former Lands and Natural Resources Minister. You have been here handling this specific sector. And for those who, look at this sector, I just had an interaction earlier this morning with Dr. Peter Anti, who says he was with this organization that some years back was conducting some studies and all of that, and the sort of destruction, devastation that was taking place was just unconscionable. Here we are, matters have come to a head one more time, and we're talking about the very people walking the corridors of power, those who wield power, who are said to be involved in destroying our own natural resources and benefiting from it, while the masses cannot even get hospital beds. I'd like to find out from you, what was your initial reaction when you saw what Professor Frimpong Boateng had put out there?
Benjamin, let me extend my regards to you and your my co-panelist, Elizabeth, and to say that, like Elizabeth, I was not surprised. I was not surprised because we have always known that the Akufo-Addo's government is not committed to the fight against illegal small-scale mining. And the evidence abounds. During the period of 2017 to 2018, when there was a total ban on mining, small-scale mining, whether legal or illegal, Ghana exported the highest amount of gold from the small-scale mining sector. Any president will want to know how this came about. Now, I'm not surprised because we all know that between the period 2007 to 2020, the fight against illegal small-scale mining was a complete and spectacular failure, because names of persons who were floated about were clearly associated with this government. There were allegations of bribery of members of the Interministerial Committee on Illegal Small-Scale Mining. We had allegations of soldiers providing protection for people who were engaged in illegal small-scale mining. We had rumors of senior party officials of the MPP engage in illegal small-scale mining. I mean, I can go on and on and on and on. So it didn't come to me as a surprise that Frimpong Boateng had, in the report, poured out his frustration on the fight against illegal small-scale mining, of which he was the chairman of the Interministerial Committee.
So for you, little surprise, or in fact, no surprise that
No
all of this...
surprise at all.
No surprise at all. Not even with some of the names that are being mentioned?
Not at all. You see, because in the northeast region of Ghana, there is a tribe called the Bimbobet, and they have a profound saying that when your mother or grandmother is accused of witchcraft, you deal with the allegation against your mother or grandmother to acquire the moral authority to deal with other people's mothers and grandmothers. And so, if you fail to deal with your mother, and like Akufo-Addo, who failed to deal with allegations of complicity in illegal small-scale mining by officers of his regime, by appointees of his regime, he lost the moral authority to fight any other person. And so it was open for all. Like, people just got into the small-scale mining sector with impunity, and everybody was scrambling for a piece of the cake. And that's why you see that level of devastation. Now let me backtrack and say, without any fear of contradiction, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, when he said that he was putting his presidency on the line, was simply grandstanding. He didn't have the intention, there was no commitment to fight the illegal mining activities. It was grandstanding. And you see grandstanding of Nana Akufo-Addo in other areas as well. And that's why Elizabeth says he talks beautifully. That's grandstanding. And in grandstanding, you have political deception. So probably we have to blame ourselves, because he told us to take a chance on him. He spoke beautifully in the words of Elizabeth. We took a chance on him. But like Michelle Obama says, the presidency doesn't change a man. It reveals the character of a man. Now, Frimpong Boateng's report put the seal on Akufo-Addo's character and attitude towards Ghanaians and national issues. It's a nail in the coffin of the fight against illegal small-scale mining.
Let me come to Elizabeth now. Based on the points that have been made, yesterday in my interaction with Dr. Arthur Kennedy, he said that these people were criminals in government. That he was very harsh, or should I say hard, maybe not harsh, but hard in categorizing those who were involved in this. I believe Professor Appiah as well. I may be mixing it up, but he said simply that some of the actions that Dr. Arthur Kennedy enumerates are all illegal. So if you engage, in fact, Professor Frimpong Boateng, so if you engage in them, you are a criminal. And if you are in government engaging in that, then you are a criminal in government. That was his logic. What do you think about that? Especially as the very people who are supposed to lead the charge are now being pointed to as being behind the Galamsey or illegal mining menace. And if that be the case, if you agree that these people are criminals in government, what does that do to our governance systems and the fight against Galamsey itself?
Thank you so much. He hit the nail right on the head. The people in government who have been fingered in this report. You know, in a working democracy, even the very perception of anyone, anybody in government, anybody in leadership, being linked to an illegal mining activity, and mind you, it's not just a matter of whether you have a license or not. And the Professor Frimpong Boateng lists it nicely. When I look at the things that IMCIM considers illegal, I see 80% of mining in Ghana right now as falling into that category. It doesn't matter whether they have licenses or not. And so for people in government to not only be linked to it, but actually be even said to be involved in it. People close to this president, like Gabi, being the lawyer of some of these companies. And people owning concessions where these things were happening. And they are right by the president within the corridors of power in government. And nothing is happening. Look at, what's his name? Professor Wontumi. Wontumi was...
You mean Chairman Wontumi?
Yes, Chairman Wontumi. In the middle of the Nimre Forest, mining, all the effluent running straight into the tunnel. Sometimes even within the tunnel. And just within the week that this came out, when every Ghanaian who heard of it was wondering when this was going to end, he was by the side of the president at the palace of Manshia. I mean, then you ask yourself, where exactly are we headed? And so it's all come full circle that this time around, it's not people standing around, people like Erastus and the good journalists risking their lives to come out with these things. But it is somebody who is right in the middle of it, in charge of implementing the president's own rhetoric of putting his presidency on the line. And then he comes out with this, that everybody around me, around the president, was himself or herself in the middle of it. And do we expect to get anywhere with this in this current state that we are in, where the police head is appointed by the president?
Are you suggesting the hands of Dr. Dampare are tied in the matter, and so he cannot act simply because he was appointed by the president?
Yes, because just Chairman Wontumi alone should have been arrested at the time that this thing came out, or the people in his company, whoever are the key decision makers in his company. And look at that, like civil society virtually has had to beg the police to do something, and still nothing has happened. No. So in our current democratic setup, nothing is going to happen. Parliament is broken down into two. The opposition is on one hand, and it looks like every parliamentarian from the ruling NPP thinks that they must go with exactly what their president does. You are killing your own party. I mean, if Ghana was a place where people really, and sorry if I come out harsh, but I just don't understand the kind of democracy we are running. That the president is always right. The executive is always right for the ruling party parliamentarians, and then it's the opposite for the other one. We should think Ghana for once. So I don't have any what do you call it? I don't have any faith in our parliamentary setup to be able to do anything, in our investigative bodies to be able to do anything, in our police, in even what do you call it? The shrages of the world. And right now, in the current setup where the president is in charge of every meaningful organization that can do something about it, even the Supreme Court, I don't have any confidence in all of that.
But Elizabeth, that's a bit. You've given into despondency then, because if it sounds as though you had thrown your hands in the air and said it is simply not going to work. We cannot fall for that either, can we? I mean, if you've given up on Parliament, you've given up on the executive, obviously, from what you've been saying, and you've given up on the judiciary, the courts, then what are you? You're left with only the media. Do you have any trust in us?
No, I don't trust you that much either. But, so my point is that it comes back to us. It comes back to the community, the youth in those communities, and to the chiefs. Although most of them have also been, I don't know what to put it, but it comes back to us, the citizens, the CSOs. Are we going to scream at it right now that it is hot news and then just go back to our cocoons? This is where I'm hoping, I'm wishing that we all come together as civil society organizations, as concerned citizens, Ghanaians from every walk of life. We come together and say enough is enough, because these organizations won't do much. Look at what the committee that investigated the Ayawaso Wagon. Even if they come up with the best, information, laying everything bare, it's just a white paper from the presidency, and it just dies. So right now, it's up to Ghanaians to say enough is enough. It's up to the youth in our communities. And I'm glad to see a community like Asemkrom, where the youth have stood up and said enough of this. Their chief is right in the middle of bringing Galamsey to the area, when they don't even have much land to deal with right now, and their cocoa farms are virtually about to be taken over by Galamseyers. They call them community mining. That's just nomenclature. But these youth, they have said enough of this, and they're taking their chief on, they're taking anybody else on to say that we won't sit there for you to destroy this. I think these are the groups we need to start highlighting in the media also, to let Ghanaians know that we cannot leave our destiny in the hands of criminals in government, criminals in the various places that we would otherwise think we could get some respite. They are not there for us.
We cannot leave our destinies in the hands of criminals, you say. I have a message coming through from Frank Ezoble. I want to take it lest I forget. It says, Elizabeth Va, I'm very happy you did your very best with the team to empower the local youth to fight for our land, forest, and farms. Posterity is judging us all. I am happy a colleague called me this morning to listen to you on JoyNews because he knew I had been firmly everywhere defending the good works of the GEAG. And so that's a message for you, Elizabeth, someone who's obviously a fan. But let me come to Inusa Fuseini. There is an interesting aspect of the discussion we're having because, as Dr. Arthur Kennedy suggests, instead of government functionaries or those implicated in this latest, I tend to call it an expose of sorts, but that report by Professor Frimpong Boateng, instead of challenging his facts, according to Dr. Arthur Kennedy, they are impugning his person. How would you want the approach to this? If you were in government, what would be the approach you would have proffered? We've had people who have been named, and of course they have a right to defend themselves, come out and impugn Prof himself. In fact, some have alleged that Professor Frimpong Boateng himself was also involved in Galamsey before his ousting. How would you have approached a situation like that?
We need to appreciate the fact that we are into a new reality. And the new reality is that it appears to many people that state institutions set up for the purposes of protecting and securing the welfare of Ghanaians are failing. And so people are coming to accept the fact that civil community action probably is the action of last resort, so that the communities will take their destiny into their own hands. Now, talking about the report. Now, when I hear people talk about the report, and when I read the response from the presidency on the report, then I'm taken aback.
They say it's a catalogue of grievances and hearsay.
Catalogue of grievances and hearsay, and say the report was not backed by a transmitter letter. Now, it suggests to me that what the presidency is saying is that Frimpong Boateng, in a Rambo style, produced a report, gained access to the Jubilee House, somehow managed to insert himself in the office of the Chief of Staff, and left the report under a stack of documents. And they only found the report 2 years after. That is when it was left. But we know from the report, reading the report, that this was a report demanded by the Chief of Staff.
In fact, just to add before you go on, he mentions that he had a one-on-one conversation with the president and the former Forestry Commission boss, Sir John, was there, and he said to the president that this man is the one who is the greatest danger to our forests. Sir John was at post. If that turns out to be true, well, Sir John was at post until his unfortunate demise.
He said Sir John represented an existential danger to our forest reserves. And he's right. And he said it before the president. The question is, what did the president do? They talk about evidence. I thought that the president said he was a lawyer. What about extrapolation? You find that you are fighting a war against illegal activities in the mining sector, which is not abating. Don't you owe it to yourself and to the people of Ghana to investigate the reasons why you are not succeeding? You find that somebody displayed gold bars at a TV program. The Internal Revenue Authority did not show interest. The Ghana Police Service did not show interest. The Bureau of National Investigation did not show interest. And the President did not show interest. When our Constitution vests minerals wherever in this country, in the President. That is the state in which we are. So the telltale signs were there. They have been there for a very long time. And any time you speak about them, they release their dogs on you. It's an environmental crime. It's a crime against humanity. It's a crime that compromises not only the ability of present generations to continue to live on the land, but also compromises intergenerational equity, the ability of future generations to continue to live on the land. It's a crime that exposes people who live in mining areas to hazardous chemicals being used by the miners. It's a crime that is targeting at the economic base of the country, destroying cocoa farms. And cocoa, we know, has been the largest contributor to the foreign earning of this country. It's a crime that is exacerbating the climate change conditions because we are clearing the forests. Today we have about 8.8 hectares of forest left in this country. 8.8 million hectares of forest left in this country. So we know the disastrous consequences of the degradation. It's a crime that is polluting our water bodies. That in the communities where illegal mining takes place, nobody can now move to the water river bank and fetch water to drink. Why? I say that if this were a serious government, all these people would have been in jail for a very long time. For a very long time. Does it make sense, Benjamin, that for centuries, our ancestors in the gold-producing areas knew that gold was in the water bodies, but they never attempted mining in water bodies. Why? They thought, our ancestors thought, that they owed us, the present generation, a responsibility to keep the water bodies clean. What do we think that we don't owe future generations that responsibility? And can be so irresponsible in the management of our natural resources. And I'm so disappointed in the president that I'm even short of words. Because he knows, unless, of course, you have not flown over the area. The president talks about evidence. Didn't Frimpong Boateng annex to the report pictorial evidence? Didn't Frimpong Boateng name and provide evidence of persons who were engaged in small-scale mining? Indeed, if the president is saying that that evidence was prima facie, what prevented him from causing further investigations into the scanty, in quote, evidence that was provided by Frimpong Boateng? Clearly betrays the lack of interest of the president in stopping this menace. And he could not stop the menace. And he cannot stop the menace because his own people are involved in perpetuating this carnage.
Right. Hold for me there, Mr. Fuseni. I'll come back to you on the same questions, these same questions I'm about to pose to Elizabeth. Two of them very quickly. One, does it take away anything if Professor Frimpong Boateng himself dabbled in illegal mining? Does it? I mean, he's exposed all of this in that report. But does it take away the sting of it if he is found to be involved in that? And secondly, members of the other side, the NDC, we're focusing on the members of the MPP. Yes, there are a lot of them in there. But some mention is made as well of some members of the NDC. In fact, the report indicates that members of the opposition NDC had also acquired several mining concessions, especially in the western region. Quote, in the Wassa East district, a former NDC deputy minister, who is also a member of parliament for the Wassa East constituency, has been actively mining in the Subri forest for years. What do you make of this in terms of the NDC's push against government, fight Galamsey, but they also apparently had their hands in the cookie jar? What do you make of it, Elizabeth? Hello, Elizabeth?
Yeah, do you hear me?
I can hear you now. Please go ahead.
Yes. It's just, regular, we majoring in the minors and really forgetting the big picture. A crime is a crime is a crime. And if Professor Frimpong Boateng on his part was also involved in it, it's just a matter of take the report he's presented and start a thorough investigation of it. Whether he is in it and he hasn't indicated his own on that report or not. Why do we have investigative bodies in this country that the poor taxpayer is paying for? So just poo-pooing the report that, Professor Frimpong Boateng was also involved, that is childishness. That is just a mark of people that do not want to do anything with this very, very important information that we have right now. And whether it is NDC people involved or MPP people involved, a crime is a crime is a crime. Look at what they have done. Have they broken the laws of Ghana as with regard to mining? Yes, If yes, prosecute them to the highest level possible. It doesn't matter whether they are under an elephant umbrella or an umbrella's umbrella. They are human beings who have committed crimes, and they have to be dealt with as such. We shouldn't lose focus. And you see, looking at those pictures you were showing, and looking at Ghana Army personnel just protecting people while they pillaged our virgin forests. I mean, the Ghana Army has just sucked. Every single time something like this had come up, they've just, they go measuring in the minus, and then it just gets covered up, and we are still here. Ghana Army sworn to protect this country from internal and external forces. And this is a war being waged on us within our country by criminals. And you are actively involved. I read at a point that there was like an MOU where you supply people, you supply Ghanaian soldiers to protect those destroying Ghanaian lands.
In fact, if I may add, in today's Daily Guide newspaper on page 6, it suggests, according to the same report, that Major Mahama, or then Captain Mahama, was deployed to protect a mining concession belonging to C&J Alaska, and that was what ultimately led to his unfortunate demise. So you see how far the tentacles, if we are to take what he is saying, and if that is the truth, and there have been suggestions of same even in the past, if we're to take that as the gospel truth, and then you would see how far-reaching the tentacles of illegal mining have come, leading even to death in some instances.
Yes, and all those criminals, crime has no expiry date. I don't trust the setup we have right now because they won't do much. But Ghanaians, we need to come together. If we need to go to the international court, I don't know where we can go, but we need to line up all these criminals and make sure that they face justice. Make sure that
are you saying, my apologies, are you saying that you've got to the point where you do not trust any system in the country to do justice on this issue? Yesterday, I believe it was my guests, whether Dr. Arthur Kennedy or one of them, actually said that he didn't trust the CID, the Ghana Police Service, to deal with the matter, and he would want a parliamentary probe. Are you saying you've got to the point where you don't think any institution in the country can deal with the problem, and we have to go international to sort of draw attention to the problem?
That's where I'm leaning towards, because who is going to stand up and really look at this, give this what it deserves, how it deserves to be looked at? Look at us already talking about NDC people did it, MPP people did it. And this is where it ends up covered up in the noise and buried. And then we will come back here 2 years later saying the same thing while our communities continue to be pillaged. We can't do that. These are crimes against humanity. And there are signs within those communities that all that mercury, all that destruction is beginning to bite in terms of actual cost to human life. So we need to compile all of these things and take it to wherever we can take it. That's not saying that things shouldn't be done at home. I don't trust it. But let everybody in a position of authority with a conscience begin to see that this has gone on for too long. And look, don't sit in Accra and think that, oh, it's a Western region problem or it's a Northern region problem.
It's everywhere.
It is affecting everybody everywhere.
It's everywhere. And even if you look beyond that and you look at sand winning, go to some of our beaches now. People are basically pillaging our beaches as well, taking the sand from. I mean, there are different environmentally hazardous activities going on in our country. People are running amok and destroying our environment, and all of us are going to suffer the consequences, especially posterity. But let me come to you, Nusaf Hussaini, on those same points. Does it matter, or would it matter, if the hunter became the hunted? If Professor Frimpong Boateng was seen to be complicit in a way in what he is accusing others of. And how do you find it that some members of your party, the NDC, you've been speaking against this administration's handling of the matter, but how do you react when members of your own party are also pointed to? Mr. Fuseni.
Well, so I was there. I was a minister. I was given the responsibility together with my colleagues to bring some sanity into the small-scale mining sector. I was given complete and unalloyed support by His Excellency the President John Dramani Mahama. My activities led to the sacking of a district chief executive. I can tell you that members of the government who had reports were complicit were sent letters and warned that they will be arrested. And I have no doubt in my mind that during the period that I was at the Ministry of Lands and Natural Resources, everybody knew, including people in my government, that they will face the consequences if they were apprehended. You see, the law is the law is the law. Governance is about trust. The people must believe, see and believe that you are embarking on a good cause and that you have no personal interest. The cause is for public good. They will support you. I had tremendous support from the small-scale mining sector. Indeed, the then American embassy American ambassador visited me and urged me on. Said I was fighting for the future generation. I was fighting for my country. So I had tremendous support. I extricated myself from getting involved through greed, avarice, in acquiring a concession and engaging in small-scale mining activities. I've thought it would be an egregious abuse of public trust. Having been put in that position as minister and being paid with public resources, I convert public good for my own private good. So no, what we are seeing is totally unacceptable. Totally. That is why the governance architecture of this country is breaking down. Because people no longer have confidence. They don't have trust in politicians. Because it looks like we politicians, when given the authority, are just interested in our own welfare. So there is creeping impunity in this country. If NDC people are engaged in perpetuating an illegality under the Minerals and Mining Act, the fact that they are NDC does not offer them any immunity from prosecution. Now, the impunity with which anybody will work in the mining sector would largely be dependent on how this government has treated people of its own. So, yes, I also think that the report is simply what we describe in law as a confession and avoidance report. Because, yes, Frimpong Boateng is confessing to the issues that came to his attention, personal knowledge, when he was chairman of the Interministerial Committee on Illegal Small-Scale Mining. But we also know that during that time, Eko Ewusi accused Professor Frimpong Boateng and his son of engaging in illegal small-scale mining. I don't see anywhere in the report that his son's name has been mentioned. So yes, but it's useful. It's useful. Whatever information that has been excluded from the report could be provided to complement the report. You don't throw the report away. You don't throw up. Now, the excavators, in that report, the issue of the excavators is not conclusive. We know that the Minerals and Mining Act has a complete regime underlined of how equipment seized from the mining sector engage in illegal activity is to be dealt with. So if anybody given the mandate to implement the laws, the Minerals and Mining Act, and ensure sanity in the small-scale mining sector, sees those provisions in the Minerals and Mining Act with impunity, that will be an abuse of office. And that person is answerable to that. In fact, the report is a litany of abuses of the Minerals and Mining Act and other laws of this country, environmental protection laws of this country, and regulations. And so, the least any person will be doing will be seeking to ensure the sanctity of the laws of this country and the restoration of confidence in the government machinery to protect the interests and welfare of the people.
All right.
This we are not seeing.
Just before I take your thoughts on the way forward, we have that Shraj petition, which has been put forward by lawyers for Roxanne Nelson, Eche Dafiamekbo, Member of Parliament for South Dai. It's a petition for the investigation of public officials and other named individuals for corruption, conflict of interest, and abuse of public office. For Elizabeth, she says she doesn't believe in the system, not Parliament, not the judiciary, no entity. For you, before I take your final words, do you feel this is in any way a route in which we can address this matter? Just briefly on that, Inusa.
Yeah, I think that the Fiamoko is squarely within its right, and these are public officers. All those mentioned in the report are persons who were being paid from the consolidated fund, and the public officers. And Shiraj, he has the mandate to investigate public officers who are in breach of their fiduciary responsibilities and have engaged in conflict of interest or corruption. And so clearly, and so far, we can say that Shiraj is insulated to some extent from the bastardization that has greeted many state institutions. So it's a very good start.
But Shiraj, like Elizabeth, I'm sure would be quick to point out, is only an advisory body, so to speak. It can proffer, but what it proffers is not what must be adhered to.
I don't think so.
Is that not the reality?
I have had opportunity to tell them. For instance, the law, the Constitution provides that a person who has been appointed to a public office has a period within which to file the declaration of assets. If the person fails, refuses, or neglects to file within that context, Shiraj cannot simply say that person has not done it. Shiraj should go to court to enforce the provision. Now, if a person fails to comply with the Constitution, that is another constitutional breach. That should result in the removal or the declaration that that person is otherwise unfit to occupy that office. Because you can't breach the Constitution with impunity and still occupy a position created by the Constitution. Right. So we are saying that this church must be proactive and go to court to enforce its decisions. Okay. That way, people will take it serious.
All right. I'll be taking your final comments, Elizabeth Inusa, in a short while. Just give me a few more minutes. But we have the petitioner, Member of Parliament for South Dai, Roxanne Nelson, Dafiamekbo, joining the conversation on phone. Mr. Dafiamekbo, a very good morning to you. What is your reaction to the development so far? Just briefly on what Professor Frimpong Boateng has put out, and why this petition? What are you seeking to achieve?
Okay. Thank you very much. Good morning to your viewers, and good morning to my master in Parliament, the Honorable
Inusa
Inusa
Hussein.
Husseini.
Right.
I was his people under his tutelage. Have blossomed to be who I have become. He's not in Parliament, but anytime I have some difficult matters, he's able to come in handy to assist. Now, all I'm saying is that, and my senior Inusa will agree with me, that between 2017 and 2020, this government came to Parliament to ask for public funds to, as it were, fund the programs and activities of this Interministerial Committee on Illegal Mining. We expended a lot of public funds just to ensure that this committee, consisting of personnel from this a multifaceted committee, succeeded in fighting the Galamsey miner. And persons like the Honorable Inusa Husseini were at the center of activity during the approval process, because he himself had been a Minister of Energy and also a Minister of Environment, Lands and Natural Resources before. And he himself had a task force under his tenure.
Hello?
And he was rebuffed on the floor, but he made his point strongly. In January 2021, government issued a statement to say that it had dissolved this very lofty committee. So monies expended on their work for like 2-3 years gone to waste. But what Frimpong Boateng did was to submit a report a month after that. And this was in March. If I got the day right, he submitted a report to the office of the president. And any person dealing with the office of the president will have to go through the chief of staff. So for government to suggest that the report Frimpong Boateng submitted in his capacity as the head of this committee at the time was in an informal setting to the chief of staff, it's preposterous. A minister of state engaging the chief of staff, who was like the primus inter pares of all ministers, could not be informal. Any discussion between any government appointee and the chief of staff is very formal, especially when there is a when there's a document, a formal document that is exchanging hands. What is...
We seem to be losing you, Roxanne. Hello? Mr. Dafemako, can you hear me?
I can hear you clearly.
All right. Please go ahead then. The connection is a bit tricky, but go ahead with the point you were making.
Frimpong Boateng actually took a formal approach by writing the report of the work of the committee, detailing the activities of every perspective involved in their work, and documenting it, supporting it where relevant, and submitting same to the chief of staff. If anybody was indolent in this matter, it was the office of the president who received the report and slept on it. It took Frimpong Boateng to leak it for us to know the details of this report. So if 7 ministers are now responding to the details, it is way too late. So I am saying that SHRAC should look into this matter because the denials are too many.
Right as we cap off the conversation, I mean, you've given us a thrust of what the statement says. I would like your final reaction in addition to those of Inusa Husseini and Elizabeth Va. But before we get there, fellow Ghanaians, I want us to watch this video from years back when President Akufo-Addo said or stated his position on the fight against Galamsey. Just watch this and tell me whether that is in consonance with what we are seeing now.
You know that the activities that they're involved in are jeopardizing the very survival of our nation. I took the decision that that would be a betrayal of the trust that the Ghanaian people put in me on the 7th of January this year. And as a result, we established this committee within the government to design a policy for us, not just to stop it, to reclaim the land, to let our rivers work again, but also to see how we can figure a way for all these able-bodied young men who are involved in this activity to find an alternative livelihood. So it's a package. It's a package that we have designed to try and bring this menace to a conclusion. I've said it in the cabinet, and perhaps this is the first time I'll be saying it in public. I am prepared to put my presidency on the line on this matter.
And that is our president, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo. And there was clapping when he said it. What happened after that? Your final words. I'll start with you, Elizabeth Var. I started the conversation with you. I'll end with you, starting with your closing remarks.
Thank you so much. And thank you to my fellow panelists, Honorable Fuseni. Thank you for your continued service to Ghana. I do not really, like I continue to say, trust in our organizations to do much about this. But I trust in the people of Ghana. Our president has shown that he doesn't take us seriously. Governments have gone down under circumstances that are less than what we are seeing. We have been, we have been mocked and we have been betrayed. This is not one of those things that we sit in our homes and wriggle our hands and move on to the next story. So every Ghanaian listening right now, let us show that we will not condone this, because like it was said earlier, this is not a crime against just this generation. It is a crime against coming generation of Ghanaians. We have mortgaged our future, we have destroyed our communities, and we can't let this continue. So let's come together. Let's come together and voice this up, come what may. And then the various people in the communities, I keep wondering what and I'm sorry to say, Asante Hene, you have such authority over the people. And every ohene in every region in Ghana, your stools are more powerful than any 4-year politician. So stand up for once. This is getting too much. How can you preside over people that are being destroyed under your very eyes? The wars that our forefathers fought are different now. Now the wars are being fought on social media, in space, and within your communities. Look at how much destruction the various forests have experienced. And you still sit and watch and dress yourselves up in this whatever it is, and watch your people continue to be helpless. Please stand up. And the communities too, the youth that are the few that have started standing up for their communities, Don't despair. Don't let go. Don't let go. These politicians and all those, even if your chiefs are condoning in the selling of your homelands, don't just sit there and watch them, because your future and that of your children are at stake. We are going to do whatever we can, especially on the international front. We're trying to gather as much of the information, including what has been compiled by Professor Frimpong Boateng and all the reportage that Erastus and many of you good people in the media are doing, and see what we can do with this. But let's see some action at home, please. Let's see some action, because let's not just watch. Talk about this, and in a week's time, move on to the next topic.
Elizabeth, thank you so much for joining the conversation. It's always so good having you join the conversation with your depth and everything else that you bring to bear. Thank you. Mr. Hussaini, final words, briefly.
So, Elizabeth, I'm just thinking that we should escalate this conversation. We should seek environmental justice on the international level. The level of degradation is clearly catastrophic. It's totally unacceptable. Our government can be brought, can be held responsible.
Mr. Hussaini, I was saying, when you say on the international level, which institutions are you looking at?
The institutions which are interested in protecting the environment. Now, today we have been told that we can cut down and defoliate the Amazon. The Amazon is the lungs of the world. Today we are destroying the lungs of Ghana. I mean, we will not be having good air to breathe. I mean, the activities of Galamsey will not only affect the people of Ghana, will have repercussions on other countries and the world environment. And so clearly, people must be held responsible. And I think that we should escalate it. I also support, and I've said that civil community action is very important. But the difficulty with civil community action is that, I mean, almost everybody has not been compromised. The chiefs are leading in the corrupt activities of Galamsey. Some citizens within communities are part of it. MPP exploited that by coming up with community mining, which I agree with Elizabeth, is another form of Galamsey, of distraction. And so, let's find a way. Let's reinvent ourselves. Let's find a way to stop this carnage. Government has betrayed or revealed a remarkable lack of commitment to fighting the illegal small-scale mining or mining activities in this country. And so, clearly, it is left to us as a people. And if we don't do anything as a people, the impunity with which the mining activities is going on in communities by illegal miners will perpetuate itself. And it will not matter whether it is NDC that is in power or MPP that is in power. People will act with impunity. Let's hold governments accountable.
Right.
The officers, agents of governments that are complicit in these activities must know that they can't run away from the long arm of the law.
Just to clarify, were you saying that the chiefs are leading the destruction of our environment? Is that the line? Is that what you said?
Yes. But you don't need evidence. You don't need any evidence.
No. I just wanted you to repeat. Yes, I didn't get that clearly.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Mr.
So let me give you why I said so. Ofinsohini, when I met the chiefs as Minister for Lands and Natural Resources, the late Ofinsohini said, Inusa, my son, it's true, it's the chiefs. Because you can't sit in your father's place, and you allow this to go on in your area. So if the chiefs don't tolerate it, it can't happen.
All right.
The Ofinsohini told me that.
Okay. Unfortunately, he's not with us to be able to corroborate what you're saying or otherwise.
So he said, come to Ofinsu and see whether there is illegal activity going on.
Right. Mr. Hussaini, we're grateful for your time.
Yes.
Do we have Roxanne on the line? Mr. Dafiamepo?
Yes, I'm here.
Final words, please, and we shall wrap the conversation.
I thank your other two panelists for their contributions this morning.
This is a matter that is very dear to the heart of the nation. So my simplest request is for SHRAC to look into the conduct of all public officers during the tenure of the work of this committee. So it's that simple. Whatever they decide, I will abide by it.
Thank you so much. You've heard on this conversation Roxanne Nelson Dafiamakbo. He is Member of Parliament for South Dine. He has petitioned SHRAG to take action on this matter for those who are pointed to in that report by Professor Frimpong Boateng. You've also heard Elizabeth Va, who is Executive Director, Environmental Advocacy Group, and former Lands and Natural Resources Minister, Inusa Fuseini. You know, at this point in time, I'm going to take a breather and I'm going to take a drink. And what I drink is Awake purified drinking water. Now, this is premium purified drinking water, and it's treated through a strict purification process to ensure that every bottle on the market refreshes you better. Of course, your health is your wealth, so you have to be careful what you put in. Now, in terms of the sizes, depending on what you want, whether for kids or for adults, you could get the 330 or 500 milliliter bottles. You could also get 750 milliliters or 1.5 liters, depending on what you're going for. But if you want something bigger for maybe your home or your office, you could actually contemplate getting the 19-liter jar bottles for those places. So all you need to do now is drink Awake Purified Drinking Water wherever you go. Choose a bottle of Awake Purified Drinking Water today and get quality, top-notch hydration. Awake Purified Drinking Water, one for life. Remember, for every bottle, every last bottle you buy, an amount is donated to the National Cardiothoracic Center. And that, for me, I say it every day, is heartwarming, because just as with cancer, for those who have cardiovascular issues and all of that, a lot of these people cannot afford the treatment. And so by purchasing a bottle of Awake Purified Drinking Water, you aid such people who may need treatment but not have the funding for it. It's another quality product by Casapreco Company Limited. If you want to purchase in bulk, this is the number to call, 0262 351 251. 0262 351 251. This advert is FDA approved. Now, Bernice Abubeidu Lansa will be coming your way next. We'll also be talking about World Malaria Day. And of course, we're looking at what we have been doing in Ghana, what the different dynamics are. That and more coming your way after the break.